Very good afternoon to all ladies and gentlemen. I'm great to be here to share with you about the Singapore property market. Okay, I'm Jack from Singapore. So I will briefly touch on the Singapore property market and give you an overview and see whether is it a good time to invest in Singapore property. Okay, today I'll be covering the following topics. First, the key facts about Singapore. So give you an idea where is Singapore. Then I will touch on Singapore property market update. So what has happened over the year and what is the outlook going forward. And lately, there are a lot of buying activity in Singapore. So I'll be touching on why are Singaporeans still buying property in Singapore. It's okay. Some key facts about Singapore. Singapore is a small little country at the southern part of Asia Pacific. The total area is 719 kilometers square. So if you move from south to north, it's about 16 kilometers. If you move from east to west, it's about 30 kilometers. And I understand that Seoul itself already about 605 kilometers square, and the whole of Korea is about 100,000 kilometers square. So you can imagine how small is Singapore. Our populations, we have 5.54 million population. Okay, so that is as at now. And understand that Seoul itself already have 10 million, the whole of Korea have 50 million. So that is in comparison. Home ownership. Singapore government encourage every Singaporean to have their own house. So according to the statistics, there are about 90% of Singaporeans have their own house. So either they stay with their family, the parents own the property, or they marry and stay with the wife, with the kids and have a property. So about 90% of the Singaporeans have their own property. So what is the stock level? In Singapore, there are about 71,000 landed properties. When I say landed property, refer to houses. Okay, these are the more expensive type of property. And there are 255,000 condominium units and 940,000 HDB flat. When I say HDB flat, that's referred to a subsidized housing by the government. A majority of the Singaporeans are staying in a HDB flat. So with this gives a total stock of 1.268 million units. If you compare to the populations of 5.54, that equates to about 4.4 Singaporean to a unit. So generally a household is about 4 persons. So if you can look at it, there are still demand. The demand for housing is still very strong. Sorry. So let us look at the property market. Singapore government recently have implemented a few cooling measures. That is to suppress the prices of Singapore property market. So what we have is additional buyer stamp duty, which is buyer have to pay additional stamp duty on top of the normal stamp duty of 3%. So for Singaporean, we need to pay another 10%, and for foreigner, you need to pay another 15%. Next we have is seller stamp duty. Seller stamp duty applied to a seller, okay, who sell his property within the 4-year period. So if you buy and sell your property within the 4 years, you're required to pay the seller stamp duty ranging from 4% to 16%. Loan to value ratio. This is the loan quantum that you are allowed to borrow from the bank. So normally the loan quantum is about 60% for local, that means Singaporean, and 70% for foreigners. So there's a privilege for foreigner to borrow more money. And the fourth one is total debt servicing ratio. Okay, total debt servicing ratio means the bank will take into account your total income and your total commitment to decide how much money to lend it to you. So no doubt, the loan to value ratio can be 60%, but because of this total debt servicing ratio, you may only can borrow up to 40 or 50%. All depend on your income and your commitment. So with all this implementation, that affected our Singapore property market. Okay, with all this cooling measure, the prices of Singapore property have dropped significantly. So since the implementation of this cooling measure in mid-2013, the price had dropped. But recently, you can see that the price have stabilized. So you can see that 2013, the price had dropped. But lately, the price has stabilized. Okay, so the price property market expected to remain status quo. And there's a school of thought that the prices will increase in no time. Okay, why? Because if there's any changes to a cooling measure, the price will shoot up. If there's any interest rate changes, the price may also shoot up, and any other external factor that may affect the prices. But before we look at the prices, since the prices are stabilized, let us look at the transaction volume. Because transaction volume will be a good indicator on the future price. This is a chart showing that the transaction volume before the cooling measure. TDSI is one of the cooling measure. So before 2013, the volume is very healthy. But because of the implementations of TDSR, the volume had dropped significantly. However, you can see that 2015, the volume have increased. Let's look at the new project. New project referred to the new property that sold by the selling by the developer. So the volume had increased by 1.7%. And resale, you can see the volume had increased by 21%. Resale referred to those ready house that people buy and can immediately stay in. So the volume had increased a lot. So overall, the volume had increased by 10%. And if you compare first half of 2016 versus first half of 2015, the volume even increased by more than 20%. And just give you a breakdown, most of property are still bought by the Singaporean. If you look at it, 71% are still bought by the Singaporean. Then we got investor from Malaysia, China, India, Indonesia, USA. I suppose Korea is under the others. So if you're moving forward, we expect the transactions will shoot up again as compared to the year before. So why people are still buying? I suppose that in the long-term perspective, Singapore property market is still healthy. And looking at Singapore, externally, Singapore is still voted the best place to do business. Okay, that is external factor. Internal factor, Singapore is going to grow our population from the existing 5.54 million now to 6 million in 2020 and to 6.9 million in 2030. So with this growth in population, definitely the demand for housing will be there. So if you look at it, the prices have dropped, but the volume have increased. So if the volume have increased, there's a telltale sign to tell you that it's good time to invest in Singapore property. Thank you.